Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, I am using one of the new IOD paint inlays. I can't even pronounce it. I'm assuming it's French, but it is blue. I got that part right. So wait till you see how I transform these 5 items that I've recently picked off the curb or thrifted, and I completely transformed them in today's video. So I hope you enjoy.
For project 1, I found 2 pieces of wood on the curb, and I liked how chippy and old and vintage they looked. What I decided to do recently was cut out 2 breadboards. I used one on my live on Wednesday, and the other one we are going to transform in today's video. The IOD paint inlays can be used in 2 ways. You can apply them in paint, or you can use a top coat. Here I'm using DIY's Big Top, and I am applying just a nice even layer of Big Top down, and then I'm going to apply the paint inlay in that. I am taking my misting bottle and misting the paint inlay, and then applying it. And basically what I do right where I applied that top coat, I am putting it down. I start on one end and I just smooth it out to eliminate as many wrinkles as possible. Once I get the paint inlay laid down, I then remist the top of the piece of paper, and then it's set to go. I'm going to let this dry and then re-wet the paper and pull it off when it's done. And I do that across the entire board. One thing I will note, if you look, I'm actually videotaping and I have the board sideways. I really should have been applying this on the bottom, meaning I should have been standing on the very end of the board, because once I had everything placed, I realized that on the bottom, the piece was off just a hair. So it was not entirely perfect. It still turned out amazing in my eyes, but make sure that when you want things to be completely straight and perfect, you're standing in the right spot. Now that the paint inlay is completely dry, I am remisting it with my misting bottle. You want to make sure that your paper gets completely saturated to be able to peel it off. If it is sticking in any area, just mist a little bit more. Once that paper gets wet enough, it just peels right back. So I am doing that on the entire piece, and as I'm peeling it back, you can see that paint inlay is completely embedded in that top coat. And I am loving how this looks. The reason I chose the top coat versus paint is because I wanted to keep the chippy finish the way it was. So that's great that the paint inlays can be used in either paint or a top coat. Once I get the paper all peeled back, I let it re-dry. I did apply one additional top coat to the entire piece, and then I used a little bit of dark wax from DIY just around the edges where I had cut the board to make sure that it didn't look fresh and new. It looked as aged as the board. For project 2, I found this old suitcase at the bins. Even though somebody wrote lights on both sides of the suitcase, they obviously stored their lights in here. I still thought I was going to be able to possibly get that writing off the suitcase. I could not. They had used permanent marker and it was not coming off. So we are going to transform this today. I am using White Swan from DIY and I'm applying 2 even coats to the entire piece. I was slightly nervous thinking, will this white cover up the words lights? And it did. Surprisingly, the coverage was absolutely amazing. I wanted to make sure I did get that paint in all those little tiny crevices of the stitching, and this is one of my favorite projects. And I do have my little buddy with me, Lily. She's wanting to play catch in the background, so you're going to see her throughout the video. There she is, my sweet old gal. Gotta love Lily. Here is the paint inlay that we're using throughout the video. I wanted to give you a peek of what all comes with the inlay. And keep in mind, all the products used in today's video you can order on my website at www.sonnetsgardenblooms.com. So you get 1 page with 2 of the round roses, and then you get 3 pages with all this amazing, beautiful detail. In the past, all the paint inlays were 8 pages long. This is such a good price point for the 4 pages. So if you've always wanted to try one, this is the one you definitely want to try. I've decided I am going to put the rose pattern in the center, and then I'm going to use some of that scallop detail across the center. Then on the front, I'm going to add a little bit more detail. I had actually thought about putting a little bit more detail on the bottom, and I decided against it. Keep in mind, the paint inlays are very similar to the transfers in that you can cut and finagle them any which way. So you do not have to use it just like it's on the paper. You can cut it apart and piece it together to make whatever design that you'd like. And that is exactly what I'm doing here. And always hold on to those little scraps because you can add a pop of color in another project. And that's what I do with all my transfer scraps as well. I keep everything together and I pull it out when I'm upcycling another project. In the first project, we used the top coat for the paint inlay. In this project, we're using paint. So what I'm doing is applying 1 even coat of paint to the entire piece. When I attended the IOD conference and Jonathan Mark Mendez demonstrated how to use a paint inlay properly, one of the tips he said was have your second coat be slightly thicker than the first to really embed that paint. He also suggested just lightly misting the paint inlay so that it activates the paint inlay right away. So I am going to centerize this on my suitcase and I'm just going for it. The wind, I was outside, you guys. I was trying to take advantage of the beautiful weather we were having in Wisconsin, and the wind picked up right when I'm doing my projects. So the wind was something to be dealt with, but I did not want to go inside. I wanted to enjoy that beautiful sun, but I'm laying it down, smoothing out the entire piece to eliminate as many wrinkles as possible, remisting, and then I just keep adding pieces to make the project complete. Now that it's completely dry, again, we're remisting and pulling back the paper, and that is how simple the paint inlays are. For project 3, I had grabbed a bunch of these old tea kettles at a rummage up in northern Wisconsin. I think I paid like $1 a piece for them. I loved how vintage and old they looked, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to add just a little chunk of paint inlay to the front, and it will be a perfect piece to display something really fun in it. This is a piece that I did not want to paint either. I want it to be all natural in its, vintage agey look. So I am using Big Top again, and I want to give you all a big tip here. This project was almost ruined because of what I'm doing right here. So I am so used to smoothing out my decoupage paper with my paintbrush that if you look, I am basically sealing the top of of this paint inlay. And I'm doing a really great job of it, you guys. So when I went back to mist it, I struggled big time getting this off. So the tip I'm going to tell you is when you're using a top coat with your paint inlay, do not top coat the paper. You can definitely use your fingers to embed that paint inlay in that top coat, but then don't use any top coat on the paper. I wasn't even thinking when I did this. I initially thought it was because I was using it on metal until I watched my video and I'm like, oh my gosh, Sonnet, you are basically sealing that paper. So that's my tip of the day. Don't do what I did, okay? And your projects will be amazing because I've never had a problem getting the paper off with the top coat up until this project. After some definite legwork here, I was able to get all the paper off, and I then went back in with more Big Top, sealed the entire piece. I want the finish to be completely the same all the way around, and I just went around and sealed the whole piece, and I am so happy with how this turned out. For project 4, do you guys remember when I had that thrift haul that I got for free? This was amongst all those items, and I had it in my stash for a while. I did not know exactly what I wanted to do with it, but today I am going to be adding a paint inlay to it. So I'm painting the entire piece with White Swan, and I'm doing one full coverage on the entire piece, going in, adding a second coat to everything except the portion that I am going to apply the paint inlay because I want to work in just that small section when I apply the paint inlay. I decided I was going to use just one of these chunks across the front. I thought it would be perfect. I lined everything up, and to start, I just apply one even coat to the entire front of the project, and then do the exact same thing that I did in the previous projects. Lay it down, rub out all the wrinkles, mist the top, and then I let it dry. Now that it's dry, I remist and pull up that paint inlay. You do need to seal your paint inlay, so I just load up my paintbrush with Big Top. I don't put a lot of pressure on the actual paint inlay, and I just go across it, let it dry, and then do a second coat. I was on the way to the gym and I spied this on the curb. I quickly went around the block, grabbed this one and another chair I had to have, but look at these feet, guys. And I knew right away that this was going to get a transformation with a new paint inlay. How many of you love painting chairs? Honestly, I don't really mind it, but I find that I always am missing something. So I'll be painting and I'm thinking I'm done, and next thing you know, the entire leg, I've completely missed painting it. How is that even possible? Now that I have 2 coats of paint over the entire chair and all the legs are painted, I decided where I wanted to apply the paint inlay. I thought right down the center here, so that was the first inlay that I did apply. And then I'm like, it needs a little more. So I added another paint inlay to the very top of the chair. And in the very end, I added just a couple little details of scrap pieces just on the front. Now that I have that all done, this is so satisfying when I peel these back, and I know you'll feel the same way when you try yours. But I am loving how this has turned out.
So what did you guys think? What was your favorite flip today? Honestly, I love that breadboard. I found 2 pieces of wood on the curb. I grabbed them. I know can I get enough of wood? My husband's like, really, you're bringing more wood home? But I cut those out in the shape of a breadboard, 2 of them. And one of them I used in today's video, which I am completely obsessed about. And then if you guys missed on my live on Wednesday, I did a collab with 5 other IOD stockists who I met at the IOD conference in April. And we did a live marathon on release day. So we each took an hour and we all used the same stamp. So we used the primitive mold and the Pennsylvania folk stamp. And honestly, you guys, those are pretty awesome too. I'm actually slightly obsessed with the entire release. So in today's video, I used the entire paint inlay, and I cannot wait to use the rest of the release as well, just to see what I can do with it and how I can use it in upcoming flips. I'm always just trying to take all of my products to the next level, and the IOD sisters sure do help with that. So if you missed the lives, definitely go over to Facebook. I do have the whole event linked on my page. You can see all the other ladies' lives. So you can watch the replays. They are out there forever. Mine is as well. I am finishing one of the projects this coming Monday. I know, kind of crazy. Memorial Day. I plan on still going live. We are going to be up at the cabin, but my daughter has to come home for softball. She has practice. So since I'm going to be home and she's going to be at practice, I am just going to finish that on my live. So we are going to take the DIY paint, we are going to water it down and almost create like a watercolor and paint the breadboard. And then once it all dries, we're going to restamp it, and then we are going to seal it. And it's going to add some real beautiful color to the other breadboard that I started on Wednesday's live. So you guys have yourselves a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy the time with your family and friends, and we will see you guys Monday. Bye.